All right, let's dive into something truly fascinating today. Imagine if some of the most profound wisdom ever uttered was, well, deliberately kept from us, maybe hidden in plain sight, or even, I don't know, deemed too powerful for humanity to fully grasp. Sounds a bit like an ancient mystery, I know, but what if it's actually part of our history? What if certain core teachings meant to liberate, were kind of dismissed, distorted, or maybe even outright forbidden? Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into exactly that, what some people are calling the forbidden teachings of Jesus. Our mission here, as always, is to really extract the most important nuggets of knowledge, those key insights from our source material. And today that's compelling excerpts from a YouTube video titled Os 10 Ensinamentos Mais Proibidos de Jesus from the channel O Enigma de Alma. We really want to help you understand what these teachings might truly imply for you, for your own understanding of spirituality. It's kind of a shortcut, right? To get informed without all the noise. And just to be crystal clear, our role here isn't to endorse any specific viewpoint. We're here to explore these concepts as they're presented in the material, focusing on their meaning, the historical context described. Basically, we're here to unpack it, analyze it, and present it to you.
And this particular source, well, it makes a really bold claim, a very bold claim. It suggests that for centuries, the true essence of Jesus' message was, well, distorted, censored, even buried. And the reason given, it's not that these teachings were false, actually quite the contrary. The video argues they were too true, just too potent, too transformative. It brings up that old saying, history was written by the victors. And those victors, often institutional powers, they genuinely feared the transformative power of self-knowledge. So from this perspective, Jesus didn't just show up to start a new religion with a bunch of external rules. His deepest mission, according to this source, was really to awaken the divine within us. And you can see how for any system built on control and hierarchy or needing mediators for access to the divine, well, that kind of self-awakening was and still is a pretty significant risk.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because if these teachings really were, as claimed, too dangerous to be revealed, that implies a deliberate act, doesn't it? A suppression. We're talking about potentially fundamental shifts in how we understand spirituality and our own place within it all. So let's not wait any longer. Let's start peeling back those layers and dive right into the very first of these so-called forbidden teachings.
Okay, the first one, and you could argue it's the most foundational, really speaks to the location of the sacred. Where do we find it? Our source points to that pivotal verse, Luke 17:21. The kingdom of God will not come with visible signs, nor will people say, here it is, or there it is, because, and here's the key part, the kingdom of God is within you.
Wow. Yeah, when you really sit with that for a moment, it's revolutionary, isn't it? I mean, just imagine if everything you've ever looked for, that deep sense of peace or ultimate meaning, salvation, even that profound connection to the divine, imagine if it was never actually outside of you, never some distant promise for an afterlife. But instead, as this material suggests, it was already residing in silence within your heart all along. And yet for centuries, so many of us were taught, conditioned really, to believe this kingdom was some faraway heaven, a reward you'd only get after death, and even then, only if you followed all the rules, relied on mediators, priests, temples, sacrifices, tithing, the whole system.
And that's precisely where Jesus' teaching became so, well, disruptive. Yeah. Radically disruptive. He just pointed inward. He looked at people and basically declared with this incredible certainty, it is inside you right now. The video really emphasizes that this statement, as profound as it is right there in Luke's gospel, was and remains extremely dangerous for any system that relies on spiritual control of the masses. Just think about it for a second. If the kingdom, if that true connection to the divine is genuinely within you, then nobody else really has ultimate authority over your soul, do they? Nobody can sell you salvation. Nobody gets to dictate your spirituality because you inherently carry the essence of it inside. And this inherent spiritual autonomy, well, that's precisely why, from this viewpoint, this teaching was minimized, distorted, and ignored, even though it's presented here as the heart of the Christic message.
And, when you look closely at Jesus's parables about the kingdom, he never actually describes it as a physical place you can point to on a map. It's always a metaphor, isn't it? It's like a tiny seed or a bit of yeast, a hidden treasure, a precious pearl. These aren't physical locations you travel to. They're more like qualities or processes, hidden potentials. It really reinforces this idea that the kingdom of God is not a territory, but a state of consciousness.
Exactly. It's that transformative moment, that shift in perception, where you realize your non-separation from the whole. You start seeing yourself and everyone else as direct manifestations of the same single divine spark. And when that happens, love isn't just some commandment you struggle to obey. It becomes, as the source puts it, a natural consequence of recognizing unity. It's fascinating, too, how even within Christian history, this idea was fiercely protected, passed down by mystics. Figures like Meister Eckhart in Germany, talking about the God spark in the soul, or the Spanish saints, John of the Cross and Teresa of Avila, emphasizing that direct inner experience of the divine. They called it the soul center, or the inner dwelling. These were thinkers who, often facing friction with the institutional church, insisted God was an inner reality.
But these really profound ideas, this focus on inner divinity, they were often considered too subversive for common people, right? At least by the power structures at the time. And the reason, as our material explains it, seems pretty clear. They granted spiritual autonomy, which, let's face it, was always a problem for power structures that are built on control.
Yeah, the source calls it the great tragedy. That institutionalized Christianity largely pushed God outside. God became this distant, angry, external entity. And to get close to this God, believers were taught they had this long path of obedience, penance, reliance on clergy, and this naturally created generations who felt fear, this deep sense of unworthiness, always believing they were sinners by nature, pecadores por naturaleza, as the source says, eternally distant. But Jesus, in this interpretation, never actually taught that. When he declared the kingdom is within you, he completely shattered that whole logic, that logic of merit, guilt, spiritual bargaining. He was saying, fundamentally, look, you are already part of the divine. You just need to realize it. You just need to remember who you truly are.
But that kind of profound perception, it requires certain things, doesn't it? It's not automatic. It requires silence, deep introspection, a real commitment to self-knowledge. It's no wonder Jesus kept retreating to pray in desolate places, right? Away from the crowds, away from the noise. He seemed to understand implicitly that true revelation really only happens in the soul's deep silence.
Yes, precisely. Awakening this kingdom within means stepping off the treadmill of automatic existence, getting off that hamster wheel of just living by fear or obligation or just repeating things. It's about consciously choosing to live with presence, with meaning, with this kind of spiritual openness. It's about seeing God in small things, in a child's smile, the rustle of leaves, just the simple act of breathing, recognizing the divine in someone else's eyes. It's understanding that love is the actual language of the divine, that everything is interconnected by that vibration, this state of consciousness, this awakened divine spark within. It's what many mystical traditions call the inner Christ, a universal principle, distinct from the historical Jesus. So when Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life, the source suggests he wasn't just promoting himself, he was talking about this very path of inner awakening, this Christic path that every single person can walk to realize their own divine nature.
So, okay, if we were to boil down the ultimate revelation of this particular teaching for someone listening, what would it be? Why was it seen as so forbidden?
Well, the ultimate truth is actually quite simple. A human being who genuinely recognizes themselves as a temple of the divine. Well, they cannot be controlled. It's that straightforward. They don't bow down out of fear. They don't need to pay for miracles or buy salvation. They don't feel inferior because they understand their inherent worth. They become truly free. And imagine a free, conscious, awakened humanity. It doesn't need external dogmas, does it? It doesn't need intermediaries between itself and God. It starts living by love as the ultimate law. And in that reality, things like fear, guilt, punishment, they lose all their manipulative power. And that's why this teaching was so profound, so absolutely liberating. And, for certain systems, so dangerous it had to be suppressed. Maybe today, more than ever, we're being called back to this. You don't need to earn it, you just need to remember it's already there.
Wow. And on that really profound note of self-realization, the next teaching the source highlights is maybe even more astonishing, even more direct. It introduces this truly provocative statement from John 10.34. Is it not written in your law, I have said you are gods? Just imagine hearing that from Jesus himself, that you listening right now are a god, not, in an arrogant ego way, but as this shocking revelation that within you dwells the spark of creation itself.
Yeah, that line from John's gospel, it's incredibly potent. It's really worth pausing on. So Jesus is being accused of blasphemy, right?
Yeah.
Because he claims to be the Son of God, but instead of backing down, he doubles down. He quotes scripture his accusers knew well, Psalm 82.6, which plainly says, I said you are God, sons of the Most High, all of you. This wasn't just some random comeback. It was a deep provocation, not just against the religious hypocrisy he saw, but against this deeply forgotten truth that humanity isn't just, dust. It's also pure light. We carry this essential divine nature.
So what does that actually mean for us, practically? What was Jesus trying to show us with this almost forbidden statement? The material says he was revealing that you are an extension of the divine. Think about it. For so long, many of us were taught from childhood that we're basically sinners, imperfect, unworthy, separate from God. And maybe, just maybe, if we suffer enough and obey perfectly, we might get close to God someday.
But Jesus just completely inverted that logic, turned it upside down. He didn't teach separation. He revealed instead that you are made of the same essence. Like imagine a single drop of ocean water. It contains the whole ocean in miniature, right? He's saying you carry the totality of the divine within you, maybe latent, but very real. That's the Christic spark, that inherent divinity. And here's the really empowering bit. Jesus didn't come saying, worship me, I'm special. He came saying, essentially, do what I do because you can too. Whoever believes in me will also do the works that I do, and greater works than these will he do. That implies not just copying his actions, but accessing the same inner power he tapped into.
Those words, they're astonishingly clear. Yet our source says they've been profoundly silenced by religions. Why? Well, because a person who genuinely believes they have the power to heal, to love, to create, to transform their reality just like Jesus, well, they don't need an intermediary, do they? They don't need to buy miracles or obey dogmas or kneel down in fear. They become truly free. And as we've already touched on, inner freedom always threatened external power.
Our source also points out, and this is important, that this idea of inner divinity isn't unique to Jesus. It's like a thread woven through countless spiritual traditions, really. You find masters east and west talking about the inner Christ, the higher self, the Atman in Hinduism, the divine spark in Kabbalah, concepts in Vedanta, Hermeticism. It's ancient wisdom. But what was perhaps unique about Jesus was that he brought this profound truth to ordinary people, to fishermen, to prostitutes, lepers, tax collectors, people on the margins. He implied, with every healing, every teaching, you too are the temple, you too are a child of the Most High.
And this spark within us, it can be awakened, like a tiny seed holding the potential for a whole tree. The material says you contain a universe of spiritual possibilities. But just like that seed, it needs things, right? It needs light, water, time, and courage to flourish.
And this journey, this inner growth, that's what the source calls illumination or salvation or awakening. It's not about following rules to please some external God. It's about remembering who you already are.
Yeah.
And this teaching was profoundly suppressed, the video argues, because it is the key to freedom. It shatters that whole paradigm of dependence. I mean, if you believe you can only find God through priests or pastors or gurus or specific dogmas, you'll always be controlled, won't you? But if you truly grasp that the divine dwells within you, then, as the source puts it, your spirituality ceases to be a leash and becomes wings.
Wow. This was, you could argue, Jesus' biggest challenge to the authorities back then. He offered people the most dangerous truth, you are like me, and the response from the power systems, well, crucifixion, and then over centuries, shaping his message to serve hierarchy, instilled guilt, leveraged fear. They tried to snuff out that spark, but as the source says so powerfully, they erased the spark, but they couldn't destroy it. It's still there, waiting.
And here's the really profound implication for you, listening now. Recognizing that divine spark within isn't some escape from responsibility. Actually, it's the opposite. It's the very beginning of real responsibility. If you are a God in potential, well, then your words have immense power. Your thoughts literally shape reality. Your actions ripple outwards. You can't really play the victim anymore, can you? Can't hide behind being small or powerless. Awakening these consciousness is like lighting a flame. And with that flame, you illuminate others, you heal, you guide, you love more deeply with this active creative force. This is living as Christ, not just passively admiring him. The real miracle is understanding there's no separation. Your body, yes, but also spirit, clay, but also light, limited yet infinite. You are God in potential, and the world, maybe now more than ever, desperately needs people to wake up to this magnificent truth.
Okay, moving from the nature of self to the nature of reality itself. Our next forbidden teaching centers on one of Jesus's most famous statements, but one the source calls profoundly misunderstood. John 8.32, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Now, on the surface, that sounds simple enough. Truth liberates. But what kind of truth was Jesus talking about? Was it historical facts? Moral rules? Religious doctrines? Our source suggests Jesus meant a much deeper truth, one that cannot be explained, only revealed internally. A truth so fundamental it changes everything and therefore it frightens. This, the video claims, makes it one of the most dangerous declarations in the Gospels, because it threatens not just lies, but the comfort of ignorance too.
Yeah, from this viewpoint, Jesus didn't just come to start a new religion. He came to wake us from a dream. The truth he spoke of isn't some idea you learn from a book. It's a direct experience of the real. It's that moment you see beyond the illusion, when you realize that the world as it was presented to you is just a shell, a representation, a cave of shadows. And what's really behind it all, you, The divine spark, the I am, the consciousness that observes and creates. It's a direct encounter.
And what are these truths that are supposedly so liberating when revealed? Our source lists them: that you were never truly separate from God, that you are eternal, that death isn't the final end, that fear is ultimately an illusion, that sin is a distorted concept used for control, that guilt is a mental prison, and that the greatest liberation is knowing who you truly are, beyond all the labels.
And this truth, the video argues, was hidden on purpose because it's deeply subversive. When Jesus said truth liberates, he was also implying the flip side: lies enslave. And this, it claims, is exactly what the world's systems have done to the human soul for millennia, trapping hearts and minds with basic falsehoods. Like the lie that God is outside and far away, that you're inherently unworthy, that only a few are chosen, that you have to suffer to deserve love, that you need to pay for salvation one way or another. These lies inherently create fear, and where there is fear, there is control.
So Jesus, in this interpretation, comes across as a messenger of freedom, not fear or condemnation, which is exactly why, the source argues, his true teachings got censored, distorted, eventually turned into dogma. What started as liberation became institutional religion. What was experience became ritual. What was consciousness became guilt and obligation.
And here's the really challenging part. This kind of truth, it can be painful. Not everyone's ready for it because truth is not comfortable, let's be honest. It demands real courage. It demands leaving behind beliefs, habits, even identities we've clung to for ages. Awakening to this truth is like stepping out of a dark cave into bright sunlight. The eyes hurt, the body resists, the mind doubts. This is why, as the source suggests, so many people prefer to live on autopilot. Repeating phrases, following rules without question feels easier, safer, maybe. But it's not truly free. Jesus didn't promise ease, he promised abundant life. And that life, he taught, is only possible when you stop living by everyone else's voice and start listening to your own soul.
Yeah, that connects strongly with self-knowledge, doesn't it? Our source links this liberating truth to those apocryphal Gnostic Gospels, which say things like, truth is remembered, not received, like the Gospel of Thomas. He who knows himself knows the Father. It implies self-knowledge is liberation because the biggest lie in the world is to convince you that you are small.
Exactly. Jesus, seen as this master of inner transformation, didn't just preach. He pointed, he provoked, he posed enigmas so people would seek answers inside themselves. He knew only direct internal experience has real power. Words inspire, sure, but only experience awakens. In our modern world, the chains aren't physical iron anymore. They're ideas, narratives, things that bind us to fear, consumption, rushing, comparing ourselves, feeling like we're never enough. Truth, when really grasped, breaks these subtle but powerful chains.
And crucially, this truth doesn't just come from outside sources, not government, not media, not even organized religion, perhaps not even from the historical Jesus himself, if you aren't ready to actually hear it. It only comes when you look within with sincerity. When you get tired of following others and finally decide to follow your own inner light.
So why is this kind of truth still feared today? Maybe because it offers no guarantees. It doesn't give you a comfortable instruction manual or a boss telling you what to do. It delivers something much more, dangerous. Freedom. And with freedom comes responsibility. It's raw. It dismantles those comfortable lies we tell ourselves. It demands integrity. And above all, it demands presence. Ever notice how much easier it is to stay distracted than to really sit in silence with yourself? How much easier to follow orders than forge your own path? Jesus understood this. That's why he said many are called, but few choose themselves, not because God rejects anyone, but because not everyone has the courage to choose themselves, to really face that liberating truth.
Wow. The truth liberates, but first it shatters. That's powerful. It rips off masks, burns idols, breaks illusions, and after everything falls, it whispers, now yes. Now you are ready to live without fear, to love without guilt, to walk with the divine within you without intermediaries. It's always been there, apparently, just waiting for us to stop running and have the courage to finally look. And when you do, you're ready to be free. Okay, now let's explore an even more intriguing and often kind of ignored teaching, one that delves into the journey of the soul itself. Our source highlights a verse that consistently makes people stop and think. Matthew 11:14. Jesus says, referring to John the Baptist, and if you are willing to accept it, he is Elijah who is to come. Now wait a minute. Elijah lived centuries before Jesus. How could he possibly be there again, incarnated in another body?
Well, the answer, according to our source material, is presented as strikingly clear. Jesus was talking about reincarnation. Yes, Jesus himself, recognizing the reality of the soul surviving death and returning, not as punishment, mind you, but as this sacred process of learning and evolution. Now, that's a monumental concept. So the question becomes, why was this teaching hidden? And how does it fundamentally change how we view existence, justice, our whole spiritual path?
Right, because in Jewish tradition back then, there was this clear prophecy. Elijah would return before the Messiah. People were expecting it. Many even wondered if Jesus himself was Elijah. But Jesus says something even more surprising. He directly affirms that John the Baptist was the Elijah who was to come. So not just someone like Elijah, but Elijah himself, reincarnated. And he doesn't really explain it theoretically, does he? He just states it almost casually, like it's obvious if you have eyes to see. And it's this casualness that suggests, according to the source, that reincarnation was accepted by certain spiritual groups of the time, particularly among Essenes and Gnostic groups seeking deeper wisdom.
And at its core, reincarnation rests on a pretty simple yet profound idea. You are not your body. The physical body is just a temporary vehicle for the soul, an instrument for consciousness to experience matter, learn, grow, evolve over lifetimes. When the body dies, the soul, your true essence, returns to its source. And from there, it's called back to life. Another form, another mission, another time, always for further evolution. This cycle is central to countless ancient traditions: Hinduism, Buddhism, Kabbalah, Hermeticism, ancient Egypt, and significantly, as the source points out, it was also present in the beginnings of Christianity before the church later erased it.
Yeah, I've read about that. In the early centuries of Christianity, there were many vibrant philosophical streams. The Gnostics, for instance, spoke openly about the soul's journey through different lives. Even prominent early Christian thinkers like Clement of Alexandria and especially Origen, they discussed it. Origen, a major theologian in the 3rd century, famously wrote something like, "Every soul comes into the world strengthened by the victories or weakened by the defeats of its previous life." That clearly acknowledges past incarnations.
But then came that crucial turning point. 553 CE, the Council of Constantinople II. Emperor Justinian and the church hierarchy declared the doctrine of reincarnation heresy. Flat out. And the big question is, why? Well, the source argues the implications were just too disruptive for a system based on control. Think about it. A soul that evolves doesn't need to pay indulgences, right? A soul that returns to continue learning doesn't fear eternal hell. Quote, a soul that recognizes its eternity doesn't submit to manipulation. That fear of final judgment, that one-shot deal to avoid eternal damnation, that was a powerful tool.
Yeah.
With that belief firmly in place, the church could and did build their empires upon guilt and despair, offering salvation only through their channels.
Whereas reincarnation, by contrast, it gives immense hope, doesn't it? It suggests that making mistakes is part of the journey, that the soul matures over vast timescales, and that there's divine compassion inherent in the very process of being born and reborn, this idea of endless opportunity for growth. Well, for a system needing fear, it was simply too dangerous.
And consider this too. When Jesus healed people, he often said, "Your sins are forgiven." What sins exactly? Our source hints that maybe in some cases Jesus was addressing spiritual roots of illness reaching beyond just the current life. And maybe even more telling. Remember in John 9:2, the disciples see a man born blind. They ask Jesus, "Master, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" Notice their question. Did the man sin before birth? It clearly shows the idea of past life karma was culturally present, at least among them. And Jesus didn't correct the premise itself, did he? He just said it wasn't due to sin in this case, but for God's glory to be shown.
So reincarnation isn't punishment then. It's framed as boundless opportunity. The soul doesn't come back just to suffer randomly. It returns to learn deeper lessons, to love more fully, heal old wounds, fulfill a purpose. Each life is a step on the ladder of enlightenment. And that perspective is incredibly liberating.
Yeah, it implies there's no heaven just for a few, no hell forever for the many. You're not some sinner with only one shaky chance. You are an eternal being on an eternal path of unfolding. Jesus, in this view, came to light up that path with his own life, death, resurrection. Not as a unique event just for him, there is a powerful symbol of the universal cycle all souls undertake. Have you ever felt that yourself? That strange familiarity with a place you've never been, or that instant connection with someone new, like you've known them forever. That skill you have but never learned. Your soul, this perspective says, carries stories, lessons, promises across lifetimes.
And Jesus really understood this, didn't he? He didn't come just to save us from one single life. He came to teach us how to live all of them consciously, compassionately, with love.
So reincarnation then. It's not just a theory to think about. It's presented here as a call for you to remember who you already were and finally become who you truly came to be in this lifetime. An invitation to embrace the sheer vastness of your spiritual journey.
Okay, next up, we delve into a teaching that really challenges centuries of patriarchal conditioning. It fundamentally reshapes how we might see the divine feminine. Our source highlights apocryphal gospels saying things like, "The kingdom of heavens is like a woman." And from the Gospel of Thomas, Mary Magdalene understood the teaching better than the apostles. Oh, now for centuries, the image of women in many religious traditions was, let's face it, diminished, often portrayed as the source of sin, the weak link expected to be silent, obedient. But this narrative, our source emphatically argues, was built against Jesus' deepest teachings.
Yes, exactly. Because Jesus, according to this viewpoint, not only included women in his inner circle, he honored them, learned from them, and revealed profound secrets to them. And this integration, this elevation of the feminine, that's precisely why religious authorities erased this aspect of his message from the mainstream story. But now, this truth seems to be powerfully resurfacing, that the woman, the feminine principle itself, is a direct channel to the divine, not just biologically, creating life, but spiritually, energetically, mystically. Let's unpack why this is so revolutionary and why it was so fiercely suppressed.
Let's take Mary Magdalene, for instance. The church historically painted her as, well, a repentant prostitute, convenient maybe, but the Gnostic Gospels, which offer a different window into early Christianity, tell a vastly different story. Mary Magdalene emerges there as Jesus' closest, most insightful disciple. In texts like the Gospel of Mary, Thomas Philip, she consistently appears as the one who truly understood the true message of Christ, while the male disciples often struggled with doubts, misunderstandings, even jealousy. She wasn't some secondary figure, she was initiated, confidant. Some texts say she was the one who saw with the heart what others could not see with their eyes. Jesus even called her companion, suggesting a deep spiritual union, far beyond just friendship.
Magdalene, in this context, really symbolized the awakened feminine, that pure, receptive channel where love and wisdom flowed without blockage. And long before Christianity, ancient traditions worldwide, Sumeria, Egypt, India, the Essenes, they all recognized women's inherent spiritual power. They honored the goddess, representing earth, creation, the cycles of life, death, rebirth. But over time, especially with rising patriarchal religions, the divine feminine got systematically suppressed. Woman went from priestess to sinner, from sacred channel to object of guilt and control.
But our source points out that Jesus explicitly came to restore this balance. He didn't reject the feminine, he integrated it profoundly. Look at the examples. Women were the first witnesses of his resurrection, not the men. He healed the hemorrhaging woman who touched his cloak with pure faith, acknowledging her spiritual strength. He revealed who he truly was, his messiahship, to the Samaritan woman at the well, someone considered impure, an outcast. None of this was by chance. Jesus saw in women something the system stubbornly refused to see, a vital portal to the divine.
So why was this teaching so fiercely silenced? Because it completely shatters the logics of male-dominated power structures. I mean, if women are indeed divine channels, then why couldn't they lead communities, speak, teach, baptize, heal just like men? The source notes that even the male apostles struggled with this. In the Gospel of Mary, Peter gets irritated with Magdalene receiving special teachings. She responds firmly, saying Jesus trusted her insight. This internal conflict in the early movement, the source argues, echoes to this day. For centuries, women were systematically excluded from altars, called witches, for accessing the sacred without permission. And still today, in many religions, they're marginalized from spiritual authority.
But the core truth, the essence, is that the sacred feminine never stopped pulsating. It was merely hidden. So this teaching isn't just about gender equality, important as that is. It's about recognizing feminine energy as an essential spiritual force within all of us.
Right. The feminine principle embodies these profound qualities: receptivity, deep intuition, nurturing care, internal wisdom, that fertile silence that generates light, the surrender that transforms. And every human being, man or woman, carries both divine masculine and feminine aspects within them. That's why Jesus' qualities in the Beatitudes, blessed are the meek, the pure of heart, those who mourn, those who hunger and thirst for justice. Our source calls these profoundly spiritual feminine qualities. May be seen as weakness in a world of power, but for Jesus, they were the very key to the kingdom of heaven. In mystical traditions, the feminine is always linked to the soul, the receptacle of light, the chalice. Mary the Mother, Mary Magdalene the Anointer. They symbolize love that understands, embraces, transforms through presence, not force. Jesus knew that without the feminine, the spirit hardens. Religion becomes law without love. And for this reason, he restored the woman to her place as priestess of the soul, recognizing her connection to the sacred. The divine reveals itself through both principles. God is not just Father, but also Mother. The Holy Spirit moves like wind. The feminine is necessary to be born again into higher consciousness.
So after centuries of suppression, this divine feminine energy is returning. not to compete, but to heal, to remind us the path back to the sacred passes through the heart, and the heart is profoundly feminine. Okay, now we arrive at what might be Jesus' most famous teaching, yet maybe the most profoundly misunderstood. You shall love your neighbor as yourself, and a new commandment I give to you, that you love one another. When Jesus spoke of love, our source argues, he wasn't just talking about emotion or romance or even just kindness. He spoke of a cosmic, spiritual, and transformative force, a fundamental vibration that sustains the universe, an energy that is the supreme law of existence. Jesus didn't just bring rules, he brought reconciliation, and the tool for that, true unconditional love without limits or exception.
But this kind of expansive, profound love, well, it was not convenient for power systems because love inherently liberates, doesn't it? Pure love cannot be controlled, bought, or used to divide or dominate. It doesn't need temples, dogmas, hierarchies. It only needs an awakened heart. So systems built on fear, guilt, punishment, they simply could not sustain true liberating love. They had to kind of mold this teaching, subtly turning it into cheap sentimentality, reducing it to nice words instead of revolutionary practice.
Yeah, the source recounts that moment someone asked Jesus, Master, which is the greatest commandment. They probably expected some legalistic answer tied to the hundreds of Torah rules. Instead, Jesus gave an answer no religious system could really contain. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. And the second is like it, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. And then he drops what our source calls a spiritual bombshell. On these two commandments depend all the law and the prophets, meaning simply everything, absolutely everything, boils down to love.
For Jesus, love wasn't just a good idea. It was a revelation of reality itself. He was essentially saying, you are love. And everything that exists, every particle, every being, is also love. When you truly love with compassion, empathy, humility, you're vibrating at the same frequency as God because God is love. This isn't just poetry, it's presented as literal. Love is the language of the divine, the source code of reality. Everything alive loves in its way. The sun giving light, water flowing, a flower blooming, all embodied love. Forgiveness is love in action. Silence is love as listening. Care is love in gesture. And Jesus was telling us, become this, live this, be this.
That phrase, love your neighbor as yourself, it seems simple, but holds a deep spiritual key, right? Our source stresses you only truly love others to the extent that you love yourself. If you're carrying self-hatred, self-rejection, guilt, you inevitably project that outward, so love truly begins within. With self-knowledge, self-forgiveness, reconnecting with your own divine core, Jesus didn't just teach love as charity, he taught it as the recognition of unity. When you truly see the other as part of yourself, love ceases to be effort and simply becomes a natural consequence.
And then Jesus took it even further to that radical, challenging step. Love your enemies, do good to those who hate you. This, the source explains, was not mere moralism, it was profound spiritual alchemy. Jesus knew absolutely that hating poisons you. Anger imprisons you. Forgiveness liberates not just the other person, but crucially you. Loving your enemy isn't about denying pain, it's about refusing to carry that pain as a chain. It's an active choice. I choose not to perpetuate violence, I choose to transmute it. And this choice is presented as the true, silent, but absolute revolution, a revolution of the heart.
And this cosmic love was suppressed precisely because love cannot be controlled. It doesn't fit into external laws, can't be bought or sold, can't be manipulated. Love doesn't need temples or dogmas. It needs only an awakened heart.
So those systems, based on fear and guilt, they could not sustain true love in its liberating form. They had to distort it, reduce it to empty words. But Jesus' love isn't passive. It is courage, it is presence, it is radical transformation. To truly love is to be free. Love is described as the only force that truly dissolves the ego, heals traumas, and ultimately conquers death. It was for love Jesus washed feet, healed outcasts, surrendered, resurrected. Because love does not die. When you choose to embody love, you choose life. You align with the flow of the universe. You become an instrument of the divine, and that is ultimate freedom.
The invitation here feels like, live love as law. Our world needs more love, not just discourses, but vibrations, small gestures, entire souls.
Jesus left a legacy that can't be boxed into books or religions. It can only be lived. By this, all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. He didn't say, if you follow a church, or repeat my story. He said, if you love. That's the commandment, that's the path, that's the key. Love is the true religion of the soul.
Okay, let's shift now to one of Jesus's most powerful yet maybe astonishingly ignored statements. Our source highlights Matthew 17:20. Truly, I tell you, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you. Now, many of us read that as just a metaphor, right? Spiritual hyperbole. But what if Jesus was being absolutely literal? What if he was revealing a fundamental law of the spiritual universe, a secret of creation, a real, tangible power dormant within every human being?
This is truly a game changer, isn't it? Faith, in Jesus' vision here, is not blind belief. It's not passive submission or just hoping really hard. It's described as a dynamic, creative force, consciousness in action. It's the very channel through which the invisible becomes visible. True faith isn't just wishing God will do something for you. It's an inner state that aligns you with the source so powerfully that external reality begins to respond to your internal vibration.
Wow.
True faith is certainty without doubt. It's seeing with the soul's eyes what does not yet exist materially. It's tuning into the spiritual field where everything is already done and consciously bringing it into manifestation.
That resonates powerfully with his other statement. Whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it and it will be yours. Notice that crucial tense. Already received it. It's not a maybe request. It's a state of realization, a knowing.
Precisely. True faith doesn't ask tentatively. It declares with conviction. It doesn't doubt. It accepts as done. It doesn't hesitate. It actively creates. The universe responds to consciousness. Everything vibrates. And the vibration of your mind, your words, and your feelings literally molds your reality. This isn't some new age idea. It's echoed by masters east and west, Gnostics, quantum physics, initiates through ages. Jesus was essentially a master of mental and spiritual power. He healed with words, calmed storms, multiplied food with the certainty of abundance. And he stated clearly, we can do it too. All things are possible to him who believes.
So the question becomes, do you truly believe or just think you believe? Our source makes a key distinction. To believe, in the spiritual sense, is way more than thinking it might happen. It's vibrating as if it has already happened. It's incorporating the desired state before physical evidence shows up. That's why Jesus stressed, do not doubt in your heart. Doubt, he taught, cuts the current of creation. Faith strengthens the channel.
When you genuinely believe with that certainty, the universe literally reorganizes around your intention. Situations shift, doors open, the body responds, abundance manifests. This isn't whimsical magic, it's presented as a universal law, like gravity. The creative power of faith always works. The question is, are you using it consciously or unconsciously? Because if you live expecting the worst, telling yourself you can't, you won't, you don't deserve it, you're also creating that reality. Doubt creates fear, and fear manifests. Jesus' faith, absolute, if you will, always your will be done. And that will was life, healing, abundance, resurrection. He knew the source response. The problem wasn't God's scarcity, but our inconsistent faith. Remember when the disciples failed to heal? He blamed your little faith. Not lack of technique, but lack of inner conviction. Faith is the bridge. If it's cracked, the energy doesn't flow.
So why did organized religion seem to weaken this hugely empowering teaching? Because a human being who understands they create their own reality with faith does not kneel out of fear. Simple as that. They don't depend on external rituals or intercessors. They don't ask permission. They manifest with an aligned heart. This kind of person is profoundly free, and freedom is inherently dangerous to any power structure built on external control.
So this active, co-creative faith got systematically turned into blind, passive belief. Vibrational practice became empty repetition. The divine got pushed outside, distant, unreachable. But Jesus consistently re-empowered people. Your faith has healed you. Be it done according to your faith. Your faith has saved you. The power he showed again and again was always within you, just dormant.
So how can someone listening cultivate this potent creative faith? The source offers clear steps: aligned thought, word, and feeling. Complete coherence is key. Thinking one thing, feeling another. That weakens the field. Live as if it's already real. Feel it like it exists now. That vibration attracts its match. Actively eliminate doubt and guilt seen as the biggest blockages. Faith is certainty, bringing lightness. Pray with conviction, not despair. Jesus affirmed, he didn't beg. Prayer becomes attunement, not an anguished plea. And maybe most powerfully, give thanks before you receive. Gratitude anticipates the blessing. The universe responds to abundance, not just desire.
You, listening, are a co-creator of reality. Faith isn't just part of the journey, it is the journey. It's the fuel of conscious creation. What transforms thought into form materializes the invisible. Jesus didn't just come to save us. He came to powerfully remind us of what we are truly capable of. And among all his teachings, this might be the most potent, the most revolutionary in its implications. You create with the faith inside you. You mold the world with what you believe. You are a creator. The provocative question then is, What magnificent reality are you creating with your faith right now?
Okay, let's explore what might be the most radical statement about our actual identity. Do you truly believe you are just this physical body you see in the mirror? That this limited flesh born, grows, sickens, dies is your true self, all of you? Jesus offered a profound, liberating counter-message. The spirit gives life, the flesh counts for nothing, John 6.63. And also, do not fear those who kill the body but cannot kill the soul, Matthew 10.28.
This is absolutely core for Jesus, according to this source. He consistently asserted the body is just a recipient, a temporary vessel. The true self is spirit, eternal, invisible, inviolable. And even more, he taught this spirit is more real than the body, because the body is fleeting, changes, decays, dies. The spirit transcends all that. The body might break, but the spirit remains whole. This teaching, our source explains, is one of Jesus's deepest, but also most ignored in mainstream views, because it fundamentally shifts power away from the material world back to our invisible, eternal essence.
Yeah, from a young age, we're all conditioned to identify with temporary stuff, aren't we? Our body, name, appearance, nationality, gender, history, roles. But Jesus, in this view, pointed to a much higher, more enduring truth beyond these fleeting labels.
He taught that you are pure consciousness, incarnate spirit. And he declared the kingdom of God does not come with outward appearance, because the kingdom is within you. This spirit isn't something you get after death as a prize. It's who you already are before birth, your very essence. The body is just a provisional garment, a temporary suit for this earth experience. The spirit is the divine spark itself. Flesh is limited, finite. Spirit is eternal, boundless. When Jesus said the flesh counts for nothing, he wasn't dismissing the body's importance here. He was highlighting that identifying only with matter, with the impermanent, is the illusion. The body gets sick, tires, dies. But the spirit remains lucid, vibrant, conscious, untouched by the body's dissolution.
And this truth spirit is supreme, immortal. That's the foundation of Jesus's miracles, isn't it? He didn't heal just the body, he healed at the soul level. His vision pierced through the external to the inner light, the spiritual core. That's why he could just say, "Rise, your faith has healed you, do not fear." He spoke directly to the person's spirit, their true self. And the spirit, once awakened, reorganized the body from within, bringing healing.
And maybe the most radical teaching flowing from this is, life doesn't end with death, even more. What dies is just the vehicle. Jesus proved this, the source says, by resurrecting. Not as a trick or just for him, but as a profound demonstration of the Spirit's immortality. He declared, "Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live." This wasn't just about belief in him as a figure, it's about faith in one's own inherent spiritual nature. Death, seen this way, isn't punishment or oblivion. It's a transition, a return to source, a new cycle. And when you grasp that deeply, that core existential fear of death disappears.
So why was this incredibly liberating teaching so often suppressed or obscured? Because a person who knows they are spirit, an eternal being, cannot be controlled by fear of death or loss. They don't live in constant fear. They don't submit to existential blackmail or threats. They live with courage, freedom, presence, knowing their true, untouchable nature.
Exactly. Religions built on guilt and punishment need you to believe your body is all you have, that death is the terrifying end, and that only they can guarantee salvation beyond that abyss. But Jesus taught the opposite. He said, the Spirit of truth dwells with you and will be in you. Notice that, in you, not in temples, dogmas, distant heavens. This is true spiritual empowerment, which is why, the source argues, it was buried under layers of rituals, fear-mongering, and manipulation.
So what profoundly changes in your daily life, your experience, when you truly accept you are, at your core, an eternal spiritual being?
Oh, everything changes. Everything. You start seeing challenges not as random punishments, but as opportunities for evolution, for growth. You understand your emotions, your thoughts. They're not just ideas, they're vibrations affecting your energy field. You engage with the world more consciously. You care for your body, nourish it, but without clinging to its impermanence. You reconcile with time. The spirit hasn't rushed, not bound by linearity, and you connect more deeply with others, recognizing that same divine spark, that same spirit in everyone. Living as spirit means living with purpose, lightness, wisdom, awakening. Jesus saw us not as flawed sinners, but as forgotten children of light, eternal spirits sleeping within bodies. That's why he called out, "Awake, O sleeper, and arise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you." Here, death isn't physical death, it's spiritual unconsciousness, the soul's deep sleep. And the Christ light, that divine principle, is already within, ready to shine.
So think of it like this, maybe let this image settle. The body is like a candle. Beautiful, yes, but the spirit is the eternal flame.
Without the flame, the candle has no real purpose. You are not just matter. You are the vibrant breath within it. You are eternal, invisible to physical eyes, yet profoundly real, foundational in your essence.
Jesus taught this not just with words, but with his life. His healings, compassion, and ultimately, he conquered death to remind us that the Spirit is the true, enduring reality. So don't fear pain, don't fear loss, don't fear change. All these external things pass. But what you are at your core remains. And the moment you truly accept this truth, nothing else can truly dominate you because you are already free. And free, you can love more deeply, create more powerfully, live in profound peace because you are spirit.
Wow. This deep dive into these so-called forbidden teachings of Jesus really brings us full circle, doesn't it? The profound nature of these ideas, as laid out in our source, isn't really about external rules or some future reward. It's fundamentally about radical individual empowerment, about a direct, unmediated connection to the divine, about discovering what's already inside you.
Precisely. The source strongly suggests these teachings were hidden, not because they were wrong or incomplete, but because they were simply too liberating, too individualistic, and ultimately too disruptive to the power structures back then, and maybe even to many structures today.
It all comes back, really, to that very first teaching we talked about. The kingdom of God is within you. For centuries, that kingdom was often seen as some distant heaven, a reward after death if you were good enough, obedient enough, approved by others. But Jesus, understood this way, came to show the kingdom isn't a place out there in time and space. The kingdom is a state of consciousness, a frequency, an inner awakening available right here, right now. And that changes everything, because while we wait for heaven down the road, Jesus was saying gently but powerfully, heaven is already within you. You just need to open the right eyes to see it.
Yeah, this whole deep dive really shows Jesus as a master of awakening, maybe more than just a prophet of the end times. He kept pointing inward to the here and now, the power of the present moment. The invitation was always to repent, right? A word often misunderstood as just feeling bad about sins. But in Greek, metanoia, it means to change your mind, change your state of being, to shift your whole perception. And when you do that, the kingdom, that awakened state, just reveals itself naturally. As the material powerfully concludes, heaven is not a destination, it's a decision. You don't need to wait for physical death to experience this kingdom, this heaven within. You just need to open the eyes of consciousness, right here, right now. The truly good news, the liberating news is you already carry the kingdom within you. The big question now is, are you truly ready to live in it, fully, fearlessly?